All right. Good. Oh, wow. This is the first time hearing my voice this morning, and it's not great, is it? This is the result of definitely of some sort of a. I'm gonna fix my view here. This is the result of some sort of a head cold, I guess. Gives me this super low voice, which you know, hopefully isn't too awful. So, welcome to the Kind of Daily Show for a Monday, January the 27th. It's the last week of January. Last week of January. Excuse me while I play with the microphone a little bit. Last week of January, and the first full week of uh, of Donald Trump's presidency, and I would say that we have survived it because we're not uh, we're not at war. Uh, mm, California is talking about seceding, that they are moving on to the um, signature portion of it so that they can collect the signatures that they need in order to potentially secede or I guess put it up for a vote in the California legislature. I'm not exactly sure how all of that works, but it's if California goes, the likelihood is that Washington and Oregon go, Nevada potentially goes, and that's a ripple effect. And I'm not saying any of it's going to happen. I'm not in the least acknowledging that it's going to happen. But someone out there in California thinks that it's serious enough that they think that they'd be better off not a part of the United States. And like I said, they have moved on to the signature round of the uh, the potential secession, which is this is history, y'all. This is not. This is it's a weird situation. Before we get into anything, I will just say, so I do have a bit of a cold, and it's not super comfortable to do a whole lot of talking. But I'll say this: new episode of the All About Nothing podcast is out as of this morning. You can check links in our bio, or you can go to theallaboutnothing.com to find links to the show on any of the podcast platforms, or you can just search for the All About Nothing podcast across any of the podcast platforms. You can go to YouTube and watch the show. You can pull us up at the All About Nothing podcast, and yeah, really good show this week. We sat down with Donald Brock Jr., who is the coordinator for the Coastal Comic Con that is coming up on March 1st and 2nd. So it's like a month away. Is just over a month away. March 1st and 2nd, Wilmington, North Carolina, at the Wilmington, California, Wilmington Convention Center. Right there. Just quick notes in the chat. Marcus07 says, let them. California needs water, electricity, fuel from Utah, Texas, Nevada. Well, there's somebody that's in favor of dropping California from the states. So it's an interesting. There are a lot of repercussions for for both California and for uh, the United States as a whole in that situation. There's a very symbiotic relationship between California and the United States. Resources necessary versus uh, the nearly half trillion, more than half a trillion dollars in taxes collected from the state of South Carolina for federal. California is not a welfare state. California is a state that puts more money into the system, the federal system, than it takes out. So, just something to be aware of, that the state of California is a significant chunk of the United States, GDP. It just is, and it's a weird thought to think that we're almost at our 250th anniversary uh, of being a country. July 4th, 2026, it's 250 years. And the idea that we have states that are at least setting the process of potentially looking at secession, not succession. Everybody watch Succession. Great show. If you haven't, watch it. It's a really good show. It was a really good show. But it's yeah. So there's that in the news, which is not super exciting. Uh, the It looks as though oh, I don't think I was done with the news. So go subscribe to the All About Nothing podcast. Go to theallaboutnothingpodcast.com. Again, great conversation with Donald Brock Jr., who is the coordinator for the Wilmington Convention. No, I'm sorry, the Wilmington, North Carolina Coastal Comic Con, March 1st and 2nd. Tickets are available now. You can go to coastalcomiccon.com to get to purchase your tickets. Um, March weekends in March are great in Wilmington. It's beautiful weather. It's just on the fringe of being into spring, and perfect time to be in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's off peak season, so hotels are cheaper. Lot to do there. I'm gonna try and quit breathing into the microphone. I apologize for that. This is not how my voice normally sounds. This is much more raspy and not super enjoyable on my part either. See some big things happening over the weekend, including the ICE Trump's uh, I don't know why I just slid my keyboard. Um, the immigration uh, customs enforcement, they did do an attempted flight to Colombia, the country, to return several to resell to return several man I'm having a hard time return several nationals that were in the United States illegally, that had committed crimes, and which was what he said he was going to do. He was going to deport criminals that were here illegally back to their home countries, and the attempt was made, but Colombia would not take them. So Donald Trump initiated the imposition of a tariff on Colombia for all of the goods that come from Colombia, which again, don't get me wrong, uh, um, tariffs don't affect the home country in which the goods are coming from. Tariffs are a tax on us as citizens of the United States, because what happens, and I know a lot of people already know this, but what happens is, um, once the products are en route from the country they're coming from, those products have already been paid for by the company here in the United States. When they get to the United States, there is a tariff imposed on those goods in order to make it through customs. The customs, or I'm sorry, the company that had to pay for those tariffs to get them through customs then just raises their prices in order to compensate for the tariffs that they paid to get those products in the United States. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't have an effect on the country, because obviously, so what happens is those goods coming in the United States, they're more expensive than the goods that are already produced by in the United States, or are from a country that is not having tariffs imposed on them. I'm having to breathe heavy between. Sorry. So those the those tariffs, those increased prices on those products that we buy from those countries, then uh, those products are now more expensive in the store. So the likelihood is that we would buy a different product that is comparable but less expensive because of the tariffs put on, let's say, coffee. So now we're buying Peruvian coffee because uh, the Colombian coffee is too expensive or more expensive. And that does wind up potentially having an impact. It's not an immediate impact, but what it is so even just the imposition of a tariff means that whatever company, let's say it's Folgers, let's say Folgers Coffee through whatever their parent umbrella company is. Folgers Coffee now says, well, wait a second. We're not going to make as much sales on buying Colombian coffee. So we're not going to order Colombian coffee. That is the actual pain that the country will feel because the company here in the United States will not order or will not place an order or will place a smaller order. So now you are hurting that country economically through tariffs. Tariffs don't pay for our taxes. You're not going to get our taxes are not. Um, so Rompy in the chat says the impact was immediate. Tariff stock Colombia reversed its position. That isn't true. It was the potential impact that it was going to have on the farmers in Colombia. That's what it was. And you can look it up. That's how tariffs work. Tariffs aren't immediate. It's not like it's not like there was the entire shipment of coffee for the year 2025 through 2028 coming in that was going to have tariffs attached to it. That's not how it works. So I'm sorry. Um, but it's that's this is the global political or political global political game that's being played right now. There wasn't any permission that was asked to Colombia to fly these deported illegal criminals. Um, there was no permission asked. Based on some of the reports, it doesn't look like there was a lot of communication. Basically, they were put onto a flight, a military flight, and flight down to Colombia. And but it was reversed. Uh, Colombia backed down on accepting the deportees on military planes after Trump's tariff threats. So, see, that's another thing. The tariffs never actually went into effect. They were threatening tariffs. Um, so, yes, the individuals that were deported to Colombia are Colombia native. They are Colombia nationals. So they are being returned to the country in which they embarked from. Um, there's talk now of that is, I guess, that's being put forth. It's a little disturbing in my mind because I know of people that are of Israeli and I know of people that are of Palestinian descent. That there was a suggestion thrown out there by, I believe it was the president, that that Israel should, or that the Palestinians that live in the Gaza Strip should vacate the Gaza Strip, and that Jordan should take every Palestinian in. Um, it just it this is, if President Biden during his term had suggested a mass exodus that uh, was in the same architecture, I guess, of what it is that President Trump is now suggesting, people would be up in arms. You know, it's uh, it's because essentially what and there are people that absolutely will have no problem with it because they view Palestinians as not being human beings where they are. um and that's just pure racism, but and for no reason. Like most people, here in the United States that have this awful viewpoint of a Palestinian is based completely off of zero experience, except for what they get from their state media run, or state run media news. And the so what is being suggested is basically the same thing that was done to the Cherokee Indians when the United States was expanding westward, where they were put, basically the idea was is they were told to vacate the area. It was called the Trail of Tears. Um, Rompe says Palestinian is an ethnicity, not a race. Doesn't matter. You 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 or others clearly have some sort of vengeful disgust of Palestinians. And I don't know if it's because of your Christian faith or maybe your Jewish faith, but when surveyed um, in Israel, Israeli citizens don't have the same opinion of Palestinians as Christians and or evangelicals. Sorry, here in the United States, um, there is not the disgust, there is not the hatred that people seem to have based purely on nothing here in the United States. I don't think anyone. I doubt there's much interaction that comes across as negative uh, for evangelicals here in the United States, purely caused by someone who is of Palestinian descent. Sorry, words are difficult this morning, and I apologize. Um, that is from or is considered Palestinian. That's it's just I think that those numbers are pretty low. Um, Squirrel Dog says, "Is it evangelicals killing them?" No, it's Hamas that was killing them. There's a ceasefire. Um, Hamas is not a representation of Palestine or the Palestinians, as the Palestinians are not a representation of Hamas. Hamas has bad actors in it, from many different countries and ethnic backgrounds, and that's a generalization. Um, so this isn't a religious discussion because if while I fully believe that there was an individual named Jesus who shook up the system and told people to be good to each other regardless of their race, creed, color, whatever, uh, the evangelical Christian faith in the United States doesn't believe that. They have moved themselves completely away from, uh, and mostly because their leadership, but and who it benefits. But evangelicals in the United States are um, besmearing the word that I believe that Christ fully wanted. It's like it's so easy just to ignore what's written in the Bible, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing that there isn't a whole lot of Bible reading going on anymore. And I say that as an individual that has read it 3 times, back to front, I'm sorry, front to back. See, it's the cold. I've read it front to back 3 times. And, you know, while I am, again, I believe that based on the history that there was someone named Jesus. Was he the Son of God? You know, that's a bold claim that I need I need to see proof of, not just through faith, because I put my faith in leadership here in the United States and constantly disappointed. I think a lot of people are. Uh yeah, somebody said let me see, I'm sorry, I missed it. Just bow chicka bow wow says we need what would Jesus do? WWJD to come back, to make a comeback. Oh, I mean, that was back in the early 2000, late 90s, I think, right? Or It may have gone longer than that. It was when I noticed it. Everybody would wear the beads that said WWJD and recognize it as, what would Jesus do? And you're right. That's not a bad idea. So D Gerald 275 in the chat says, for one thing, people no longer own real Bibles. King James. Well, King James actually isn't the real Bible either. Uh, the real Bibles that were original Bibles um, were written, I believe, in Greek, and the Catholic Bible, including all of the books of the Old Testament and the Gospels and so on. That actually would be considered the NIV Bible would be considered to be the most authentic Bible. Um, but the Christian evangelicals, there was a decision made as to Old Testament books to remove them from the Bible because they either seemed redundant or felt like they were telling the same stories, even though they weren't. They're different, or they're telling them from different perspectives, much like Gospels. The four Gospels tell very similar stories, but they tell them in different ways from different perspectives. So anyway, look, we've gone off on a tangent this morning. My voice is probably not going to hold up much longer. And let's see, Perry Winkler says, "Is this a Christian life?" No, no, but sometimes the non-Christians are the ones that seem to understand that history better than even the Christians. Because if we're going to start teaching Christianity in schools, it's probably going to have to come from a history-based perspective. Because to teach kids that they have to recognize that faith is only going to turn more of them away from you. That's probably what'll happen. So, and then you'll have to deal with the repercussions of that. Uh, Atheism in the United States is uh, growing at leaps and bounds. The number of people acknowledging that they don't have a particular uh, attachment to any one faith is getting bigger. And, we live in a country that's not supposed to be based on any sort of religious background, though it does seem as though there's a lot of attempts to try and make that happen. That's going to be difficult. The more you push people towards something, the more they're going to be pulled away from it. It's just a fact. There's uh there's too much there's too much there's too much intelligence and critical thinking, and the fact that to make these bold claims you have to have bold evidence to support them. And um that's one thing that Christianity can't do, because the only thing that they can say is, hey, it's in this book, read these pages. Because if I was trying to convince somebody that trying to think of something obscure that could potentially be a similar situation. I don't think there is. There's not a lot out there that asks people to have just a blind faith in something purely based on the words in a book. That there's no there's historically nothing has really happened without evidence since, for nearly more than 2000 years. So, that's, again, as we move through time and evidence is unavailable, I think the likelihood is that we continue to see more and more people leaving Christianity, because it's getting harder and harder to convince people that something happened just because it was written in the book. Look, I've read The Lord of the Rings countless times. I've read The Hobbit countless times. I know that stuff didn't happen for real. And I'd be embarrassed if someone tried to convince I'd be embarrassed for them if someone tried to convince me that that stuff took place, that there's a Middle Earth, and that there are dragons and dwarfs and cave trolls and sorcerers, and I'm just saying it's not. Hobbit's a fantastic book. You are correct. Bow chicka wow wow. Bow chicka bow wow. Sorry, I said it wrong. But yeah, absolutely. Hobbit's a great book. Cimmerillion. It's a little harder to swallow, but it's a good book. I got Dusties flying in here. At least I think it's a Dusty. A dust little dust ball. Anyway. Okay. So here's the thing. This is the hard sell. I'm gonna sign off. But if anybody watching, if you haven't already, please follow us on the podcast. You can follow us on TikTok. You can call us across social media. We'd really like to get our YouTube numbers up. So if you have it and you follow us on YouTube, theallaboutnothing.com is where you can find links to all of our social media and details on podcast episodes and things like that. Um, New episodes come out every single Monday. We'll be recording this Wednesday. We don't have our guest lined up yet, or we don't have a concrete on our guest, but we'll get that lined up as to who we're going to be speaking with. Be a good episode, I'm sure. So please do that. Also, if you could, my name is Barrett Gruber. I am also here on TikTok, and I am this close to getting to 1,000. And I don't know what it means to get to 1,000. We're a little further away from 1,000 on the this TikTok, this podcast. Um, but essentially, um, if it looks like we're starting to get closer to 1,000, I have a video that I'm going to put out that essentially, and I'll just break it here. The person that crosses the 1,000 mark and sends me a screenshot and their contact information in our webpage. But the person that does that sends me a screenshot of them as the 1,000th follower, then or they send me 999 and then send me 1,000 screenshots. Then we have a free T-shirt that we will send you at our expense. You just have to tell us the size and everything, but it's a Nothinger T-shirt. It says Nothinger or hashtag Nothinger and um, what's the a new car for you and but it says Nothinger and it says if you know you know. So so that's gonna do it, everybody. Thank you very much for bearing with this because it's not great. And just you all don't get sick. Stay safe, be kind, and keep your hands to yourself. All right. Thanks, everybody. You all